Muted.
Thank you again for joining us this morning for the document management webinar. I wanted to provide you a little bit of background information about Worldview. And first we'll cover the brief agenda of the topics we'll be discussing today. First of all, we'll discuss the partnership between DMSI and Worldview, the additional document management functionality, and a demo of the solution. To begin, I wanted to first let you know that Worldview actually began as a division of DMSI. The folks at DMSI found there was a large need for document management within the industry. And so what they focused on was integrating the best-in-class software for their customers in order to manage their documents. What they found was this need extended far beyond the documents solely for building materials. And so they quickly expanded into other departments, including credit and human resources, among others. And eventually the need for document management grew large enough where Worldview actually branched off as their own company and started back in 2001. Over time, Worldview was able to focus on an integrated model between the document management solution and the platform that Agility provided. And what we found was that it worked very well with advanced automation such as invoice approval workflows, integration with Microsoft Outlook, email, and other formats. As business continued to grow with Worldview, we had also expanded our reach into other industries as well, and currently we're also working with folks within the healthcare, home and healthcare industry, and multiple others, which we'll note here later on here in the PowerPoint. So being the document management experts, our goal is to take a consultative approach with you in terms of crafting a solution that's going to provide the most value to your organization. All of our solutions are fully customizable, which we'll hit on several points, and you'll understand why as we go through the demo today, because ultimately we want to take what your current processes are and make those as efficient as possible for you and your team in terms of your document management. That being said, in addition to that aspect of our service, we also have dedicated client support resources. So what we've done here is consolidated our resources internally, and so any questions or concerns that you may have regarding your solution, there will be a specific group of a few people who will have a large amount of knowledge about how your solution is built. And those folks would be the only ones who would be working with you on your solution. So very specialized set of individuals who will work with you. Now the software that we utilize for the back-end content management is Hyland OnBase. It is a very robust solution with several modules, which we'll discuss it in a little more detail here. They are an industry-leading platform. The great thing about Hyland OnBase is they're a fit-to-purpose solution. They're very flexible. Again, that goes hand in hand with our ability to create a customized solution for you. And what it allows that to do is grow with your organization. So as your business grows, as your needs change, this type of solution is going to grow with you. So as you can see here, we've got a few other individuals that we've been able to work with in terms of incorporating our software with Hyland OnBase, and it extends beyond the building materials industry. So as I mentioned earlier, healthcare, and also Starbucks, actually, we have integrated Hyland OnBase, their software, with Starbucks ERP system. So we've had a lot of experience with this software and incorporating it with a variety of different industries, but also with a variety of different ERP platforms as well, which is obviously shown here specifically within the DMSI customer base. This is just a modified list of the customers that we work with DMSI. we've implemented document management solutions for these folks. We work with over 100 DMSI customers overall. So we have had a lot of experience with crafting customized solutions for these organizations. One thing I want to touch on really quickly, the functionality that we'll be showing today is fully integrated with the Agility software. And so again, as I mentioned, DocPop, most of you should be familiar with that. We know that's a single sign-on retrieval that allows your folks to retrieve documents within Agility directly without having to log into a separate Worldview site. Electronic documents are a benefit as well. There are several documents that can be created within the Agility system itself and then passed on to Worldview for storage and later retrieval without any paper involvement whatsoever, everything being created virtually. And the most important thing to keep in mind is the database integration that Worldview has with Agility. So we are able to pull data from Agility and push data into Agility, which I'll show you some great examples of later here during the demo. This is just a listing of the most common screens within Agility that you can DocPop documents from. This isn't a holistic list. As we're working on developing a solution for you, if you find there's another screen within Agility that you prefer to utilize to DocPop certain documents, we can set those up on an ad hoc basis. But this is just an example of a majority of the ones that are set up standardly. Speaking again to the electronic documents that are created within Agility, this list here is just a few of the most standard ones that we see folks store with us. As it says, there's over 20 documents that can be created within Agility, and we'll see a few examples of these later. One more thing I wanted to touch on, which we won't be demoing today, but certainly I would be willing to speak with you on a one-on-one basis once we start developing a solution. Beyond document management itself, Worldview is specialized in automated business solutions. So that includes the things listed here and kind of like I mentioned earlier, AP workflows. Once we have a document management solution in place, there's a lot of other solutions that we offer that will only help to create a more efficient solution for you and your team and be more cost effective as you may be looking to reallocate resources to do other tasks within your organization. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started with the demo itself. Like I stated, I know that most of you are familiar with DocPop, but I wanted to elaborate on that a little bit in terms of what you're able to do through DocPop. So what we're going to start with here is just an example of a sales order. So I'm on the sales order entry screen, and in my SOID field, I typed in 12546, and I'm going to retrieve that document by clicking the dot storage button. When I do that, a separate browser window is going to pop up, and basically any document that has 12546 as a keyword or an assigned value to it is going to show up here in what we call the hit list. So as you see here, the transaction on 2546. So we're going to go ahead and pull up the delivery ticket, since I know that's what most of you are storing here today. And so as we know, it's very beneficial for your folks if you've got a customer on the phone and they're having a question about a delivery and whether or not a product actually was delivered. You're able to type in the sales order ID number, pull up the delivery ticket here, and confirm that indeed it was signed for with the delivery date and any other information that the customer might need while they're on the phone. Obviously, no searching through files, having to call a customer back, anything like that. Beyond that, what else I'd like to show you is a little bit more functionality that's available. So first of all, let's say you've got that customer on the phone and you provide them with that information, but they want a copy of it. Up here on the toolbar, you have the option, if necessary, to print this document and mail it to them. But more efficiently, what you're able to do is email it to them simply by right-clicking on the document itself hovering over Send To and selecting Mail Recipient. That allows you to save the document in a PDF format, and it'll automatically create an email, attach that document to it, and then you can send it directly to the customer's email address within a matter of seconds. Another nice thing about the DocPop feature here is that if you're pulling up any document, but still using this as an example, you are able to add a note to this document. So up here on the toolbar, you just select Add Note. And let's say that you need another individual within the organization to review this delivery ticket. All you have to do is type in the note here. It automatically saves it to the document. If we click on it, it'll minimize here. And then again, when you right-click and need to send this document as an attachment in an email, it will save this note on the document. So then when that recipient opens the attachment, they'll see there's a note on it that they need to look at so they know what to review. Anytime a note is added to a document, it will stay on there. They can certainly be deleted if necessary at any point. But again, that will always stay with the document itself until it's modified. Going back up to our hit list here, like I said, any document that has that sales order ID as an associated keyword is going to show up on this hit list here. So if we wanted to see perhaps there's a delivery picture that was taken for this order that's associated, we can certainly look at that as well. But one of the other nice features is the ability to cross-reference to other documents. So there may be documents associated with this order that you would want to review that may not pull up through the sales order ID screen. So let's say, for example, you're looking at all of these supporting documents for this delivery and you want to look at this customer's credit application. Well, what you're able to do, again, is right-click and select cross-reference. And so if you click on the credit application, what it's going to do is open up a separate browser window, and it will show you the credit application for this customer. So obviously the sales order ID number itself of 12546 isn't going to be assigned as a keyword to this document, which is why it doesn't show up in the hit list. But you're always able to access that anytime you need to based on the fact that we do have a common keyword, as you'll see here, of the account number and customer name. So that's how this document is linked to those others, and you're able to cross-reference that as through a keyword, assigned keywords here that are assigned to all documents. I'm going to go ahead and close out this example. And we're going to go look at another example here of an AP payment inquiry. Excuse me, AP lookup inquiry. And we're going to look up a specific voucher. Again, we see we've got a doc storage button here on this DocPop screen. You go ahead and click that. We've got the separate browser window that opens up with the invoice associated with that voucher. And again, we can perform any actions we want to, similar to that last example, sending this as an email, adding notes to it. Well, what you may notice here is that we've got this invoice that has come in, but there's nothing else on the hit list. So as we know, oftentimes, like the purchase order, supporting documentation, those are stored prior to an actual invoice being created for the customer. So the invoice number may not be a keyword that's associated with the PO or those supporting documentations. So instead, the way that we're able to do that is if we double-click right on the document itself, it's going to pull up a separate browser window, and this is the same thing as a cross-reference. So you can either right-click and cross-reference or double-click right on the document. And what we're going to see here is that the supporting documentation for this order is indeed stored and able to be retrieved and reviewed. And the reason for that is when we click over here on the key again, we see that the keywords that are assigned to this document include the PO number. So that's going to be the key for associating any supporting documentation with an invoice, is that PO transaction number is what's going to link those documents. So those were just a few examples of DocPop and how it kind of extends beyond just retrieving the delivery ticket like most of your folks are doing today. What I'd like to show you next is an example of what will take place in terms of an additional piece of functionality with your document management solution outside of being able to retrieve single documents within Agility. So anytime we create a document management solution for one of our partners, they each get their own individual website with a web client where they can go and perform advanced searches for documents. And that's what this screen is right here. So this is a demo of our web client, basically. So all of your document types that are being stored are listed here on the left-hand side. So what we're going to do is be able to perform advanced searches. So let's say we wanted to find all vendor invoices for a certain date range. All we have to do is highlight vendor invoice, put the dates in, and hit the find button here at the bottom, and it's going to pull them up on a hit list above. So what we're going to do actually is look for all vendor invoices that are stored within our system for a specific vendor, which is PhoneShack. So as you see here, I'm typing in PhoneShack under the vendor name on the left-hand side. I can select that, hit the find button, and we see in the hit list up top that there's 3 invoices for PhoneShack that are saved within our system, and we can review any one of those. So for today's example, I want to use invoice number 3330. So I double-click on that. We see this below here, and then we can go ahead and review that invoice and do whatever we need to do in terms of looking at that information. Again, as we explained with the last example, there are supporting documents that will go with this invoice, and so the easiest way to review those is, again, just to double-click right on the document itself. And so what we see is that we've got the supporting documentation, which again is linked by the PO number. So we've got the purchase order here for review, and we've also got the receiving document as well. Now another example I want to show you here is really beneficial for your folks internally based on your processes who are reviewing checks and need to look at the supporting documentation in order to approve the payments. So we're going to pull up an AP check example here, which is associated with this PhoneShack invoice. And these AP checks, as I kind of mentioned in the PowerPoint, this is an example of a document that's actually created within Agility itself, and then can be sent for storage and then retrieval later on. So there's no paper passing hands here in terms of the creation of the AP check itself and then the storage. So we're going to look up check number 5816. And so when I do that, I see we've got a check that was cut to PhoneShack for all 3 of those invoices that were listed. And again, based on your processes, we know that most companies, either the CFO or maybe the president is reviewing these checks. Maybe there's a lot of documentation, paper that goes with that for their review that folks need to produce and bring to him. So what we're trying to do is cut down on the time that it takes to review that information, cut down on the potential loss of any documents. So what we can do here is we see we've got a check, and we know this is just the check statement, but if we're scrolling down here, we see that there's a check here at the bottom. But let's continue to use invoice number 3330 as our example. So we see that this check includes a payment in the amount of $1,110 for invoice number 3330. We can go ahead and, again, double-click on this document and see what's cross-referenced. But to get a little bit more in-depth, what we can do is if we decide we want to see just the invoice 3330, we can click directly on that number itself, double-click that is, and it's going to bring up that invoice in a separate window so we can review that. So we see that this invoice was for $1,110. And let's say we want to get a little bit deeper with our investigation and look at the purchase order as well. We see we've got purchase order number 888 here. If we double click right on that, it's going to pull up not only the purchase order, but any supporting documentation as well for our review. So again, another example of cross-referencing that can be done through the web client itself, which will allow your folks to save some time when reviewing those checks. So the last thing that I want to show you here today is an example of how your folks would index documents with specific keywords. I know we've been talking about keywords a lot, and I want to kind of explain a little bit more in depth because I know right now your folks are experienced with PODs or delivery tickets in terms of scanning those in. And so basically what we know with those is that since there's a barcode on those documents, once those are scanned in, the system reads that barcode and utilizes that transaction number as a keyword on the document and then moves it on for storage, which is great. So let's take an example of another document that would need to be potentially scanned into the system, and that's AP vendor invoices. So what we see here, this is what we call our batch manager. So any documents that are scanned into the system are going to show up in a batch in the batch manager. What we see here is we have an AP vendor invoice batch that's been scanned in. It has 3 total documents. So if we highlight that batch, right-click and select Index Documents, it's going to pull up this batch one invoice at a time. And so this is where your indexer would then fill in the appropriate keywords for this invoice. So then when it's stored and you come back later to it and need to retrieve it, you've got all of these fields that you can search by to pull up this invoice. The nice thing about this is that we've got a primary keyword field here on the left-hand side of the invoice number. So what your indexer would do is look on the document, enter the invoice number that's associated, and as soon as they hit tab, what we see is that all of the other assigned keywords on the document itself auto-populate. And again, that goes back to what we discussed in the PowerPoint about the full integration with Agility. So all of this information that's housed in Agility for this order can be pulled directly from that database with that integration. So there's no need to manually key in each keyword field. Basically, all it needs is one identifier, which is the invoice number, and then it can pull the rest of this information. So then your indexer can verify very quickly that this information is accurate based on what's on the invoice. And then this button down in the left-hand corner, Index Documents, click that once, and it'll move on to the next document in the batch. So we're on the second of the 3 documents, and so we'll just perform the same action we did before. We see the invoice number is 1454. Enter that in, hit tab, and it pulls back the appropriate information. So within a matter of seconds here, we're able to index these documents with a large amount of keywords that are going to be beneficial in retrieving these documents in the future. We'll go ahead and hit the Index Documents button again. And so what we see is we're moving on to the last document in the batch. Go ahead and enter the invoice number again, 1440. We'll hit tab, and notice what happens here. So we get a pop-up box that's asking us to pick an invoice number. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced multiple customers maybe have same invoice numbers that come across, and this is the situation that we've got here. So we know this invoice is for Computers RF, so we can either double-click or highlight it and click OK, and then from there it fills in the appropriate keyword information based on our selection. So we're finished with indexing this batch and validating the information. So we'll go ahead and click the Index Documents button one last time. And what you see is that it returns us to the batch manager so we can perform validation and indexing of other batches. So now this batch that we just finished is available for retrieval. It's stored within WorldView's database and will always be available for you. So that was just a little bit of functionality that we're able to provide you as part of a larger document management solution here with WorldView. And what I want to do is provide you with my contact information here and speak with you one-on-one if you have any questions or would like to begin looking at developing a potential document management solution for your organization. Again, I know you're using the POD solution right now, and I certainly hope that's working well for you. But if your business is continuing to grow and you'd like to look at other options for storing additional documentation, please reach out to me. I am very wide open in terms of my availability, and I'd love to speak with you or correspond with you more in terms of what we can do to assist in developing a solution for you and your organization. I will send out a follow-up email later today just as a recap of what we covered, and that will also contain my direct contact information. And so once you receive that, if you have any questions or would like to speak further, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I want to thank you again for joining us here today and walking through the webinar with me, and I hope to hear from you soon. Have a great day.